Hello there. In today's session, we're diving into how Erpag integrates with storage bins. One of the exciting features of Erpag is its real-time bin tracking. A crucial step in utilizing Erpag effectively is defining the bins. Bins are essentially sub-elements within a storage location. For instance, when we talk about storage locations like materials, they might include storage bins, or they might not. Let's dive into an example by entering a material in the storage location materials. Here, we can define our bins and view their setup within this storage location. Each storage location may or may not have bins defined. It's worth noting that you don't necessarily need to define bins. Some storage locations might not require them. However, every item is linked to a storage location. If needed, items can be organized within bins associated with their specific storage location. Take finished products as an example. They have dispatch bins, which also function as quality assurance bins. These bins cater to the needs of each organization. Interestingly, a single bin can hold multiple items. For instance, you might find a window, a door, or individual items within a bin. In cases where there's only a single item, that item will occupy the bin entirely. A specific example could be a glass sheet storage rack, which exclusively stores glass. This rack doesn't accommodate aluminum profiles or anything else. Another key aspect is determining its maximum stock quantity, which refers to the bin's maximum capacity. When you perform put away, the bin won't accept more items than its capacity. For example, a particular bin might hold up to 10 meters of glass, which is its maximum capacity. The capacity is compared by its default unit of measure. If measured in kilograms or pounds, the checkup will be in kilograms or pounds. If measured in pieces, it will check up capacity in pieces. Regardless of the weight in kilograms or meters, it all hinges on the default unit of measure. A standout feature of Erpag, distinct from other solutions, is its real-time bin tracking. Erpag is a complex system, particularly in the manufacturing sector, which is why it's categorized into two sections. One such category is operating stocks. In our context, operating stocks signify what is currently accessible to us. This typically includes items being manipulated. These could be involved in the workflow, the shop floor, or the production process. As items arrive, for example, once an order is placed, they are processed accordingly. For instance, we might order glass, acquire it, and proceed to use it in our operations. We'll arrange to receive 20 square meters and update our records accordingly. The received amount becomes part of our operating stocks. Simply put, they are added to the operating stocks. Let's review the stock list now. On our operating stocks, we've received 20 pieces. These elements can transition into operating stocks, and we can facilitate a transfer as needed. Should there be an ad hoc transfer, we utilize a bin transfer. These transfers can be to place items in a storage bin or to remove them from a storage bin. Items can be moved into the storage bin or taken out of it. We aim to add 100 to the operating stocks. Here, we can monitor the quantity on the operating stocks as well as on hand. We'll allocate 50 based on the defined capacity. When placing items in a storage bin, we'll specify which bin to use. We'll allocate 10 items to a storage bin and either select the auto storage bin or specify the put-in storage bin for placement. Next, we have the transfer lists, and we proceed to the subsequent document. Here we can distribute or segregate items. For example, allocate 20 items. We'll define storage bin 2, 3, and indicate where the items will be physically placed. We then dispatch them to the storage bin. If the maximum capacity is 10 and we attempt to store 20, the system will prevent overloading of storage bins. We'll adjust the quantity to suit the bin's capacity. Let's open the put-in storage bin and proceed with placing the items in the designated put-in storage bin. When we conducted the bin transfer and sent the storage bin, we can view the details on our inventory stock list. The inventory stock list displays the corresponding part along with the total quantity. We have access to operating stocks and stocks on storage. By clicking on the Info button, we can see how our storage is distributed. The same applies when we select the item. Before viewing the on-hand quantity, you can see the storage bin and its distribution. Operating stocks represent what is currently available to us and what is required from the work order. This process is based on that data. There is a simpler variant available in this report, which outlines the method. Here, we can gather everything related to the corresponding storage location, enabling the storage location to be filled and transfers to be made. For example, when we check the operating stocks, we might notice one quantity, whereas the on-hand quantity is different. If needed, we can automatically send items by selecting these two elements and sending them through the bulk action via the storage bin. This automatically defines the raw material bin and various items based on our raw profile bin. In this example, we've chosen a handle, which isn't the best fit, but for demonstration purposes, it's fine. We can set it as a save as post document. We will record it, and then it's sent. Now, instead of being in put away, it is in operating stocks. Now we'll open the list. We no longer see put away, as we've transferred the corresponding quantity based on that. We will return to transfers and decomplete them. The items have been transferred to the put in storage bin, sent to the corresponding bin. The next situation is, in put away, only the reserved quantity is shown. This reserved quantity can't be sent because it is reserved. Reserved quantities are set aside for specific operations, so they can't be sent. Looking at the storage bin, if we exclude the reserved quantity, we'll see the corresponding quantity, which might not be enough for us, as we have 16 in operating stock. This is always based on the reserved quantity. The reserved quantity restricts this report from displaying put away, since it is set aside for an event or in a work order. This reserved quantity is meant to ensure nothing in the production process is affected. Items that are reserved and prepared should not be sent to the storage location because they are needed in the operating stocks. This option is called put away for items that are not reserved. It includes anything below the minimum operation quantity, which can be sent to storage. We have created another interesting report called the Stocks on Bin. Now we can specifically see the warehouse, its storage location, according to the bins, and identify which elements are in which bin, along with their respective quantities. We chose not to complicate these bins by inserting a serial number to avoid physical packing onto bins that would add another layer and potentially complicate the process. This process has been defined in a straightforward manner. Let's start by looking at an intriguing report we've developed called Pick for Storage Bin. Although in this particular instance, there's nothing we need to pick for storage bin. That's because everything required is already available in the operation stocks. Now, let's go through an example of making a sale. Yes, we'll conduct a sale. In fact, we're going to carry out a 3-class sale. We'll proceed with 160 square meters. The specifics here have already been defined by the customer for us. We'll also note that the block quantity part is already defined. The reserved quantity is set, and the quantity under conditions is determined. As we move to the next situation, when we revisit the Pick for Storage Bin report, we will observe the quantities that are meant to be reserved for us, as well as the existing quantities. This will enable us to prepare a stock of 30 for the storage bin, facilitating a transfer to that particular stock of storage bin. Essentially, it's 30 pieces that we are short of, which is a critical component. Here, we'll determine if we can pull for the storage bin from this point, or if we prefer forming a pull from the storage bin within this cycle. Essentially, that's the approach we could take. This will allow us to automatically acquire the quantity that we currently don't require, facilitating the transfer from bins to operating stocks. This action will align with the needs of our sales order. Now, let's take a look at the item. We'll define what's on hand, we've transferred, yet we still have 10 more on that stack. However, we can handle it in this manner. If we attempt to do a packing of 160 pieces right now, regardless of reserving such an amount, we'll be notified of insufficient operating stock. However, there are quantities available in the storage bins. This means we can facilitate a transfer from the storage bin. While we won't allow automatic transfers, we can indeed perform a manual bin transfer. We'll opt to pull for the storage bin, select the item, and proceed to transfer the entire quantity. For instance, we'll transfer a portion of the quantity, say 9, and continue the pull for the storage bin. Automatically, if we're unsure about which storage bin we're working with, we can utilize the auto option for the storage bin. It will automatically manage the transfer to the storage bin. In this scenario, there's only one storage bin, but if there were more, it would distribute among several different storage bins. Now, as we process, we'll check our sales order to see where that pack was sold. We'll set the number to 160 and proceed to export the completed sale. We have successfully packed this sales order. Finally, we'll create a packing list for the sales order, and that essentially covers everything about managing the storage. As we start exploring the inventory management process, the focus here will be on understanding the bins where the largest reports are occurring. We can open and close these bins as needed. This is also applicable in other scenarios, for instance. We'll proceed by creating a standard work order. Here, we'll define the output items specifically. Let's consider a deficit example, perhaps involving a quantity of 10. When it comes to quantity, as we produce and deliver finished goods, these automatically move into the operating stocks. Currently, we'll take a look at the operating stocks. Just a moment as I recall which specific item we were dealing with here. Regarding operating stocks, which are stored in the storage bin, we can later proceed to organize these. We can perform a put away and determine a storage space, for instance. Let's allocate this. We'll place it in a designated window. We already have a reserved quantity, so for this particular item, the reserved amount is based on a specific sales order. I'll select that defined sales order. If there happens to be a sales order, just a moment to identify the right one. The reserved quantity here is 20. Apologies, I should have created another standard work order for a larger quantity. I'll set the amount to 15. We deliver the finished goods. In our inventory stock list, we have 25 with 0 in storage. Now we'll initiate the put-away process, creating a storage space for 12 units. The difference in operating stocks can be sent out. We'll define the put-in storage bin for this difference based on what we have observed. The allocation is now split across 2 storage bins because the maximum capacity of a single bin is 10. Therefore, it automatically divides the items to fit the capacity limits. This functionality is part of the auto storage bin system, though we can also do it manually or choose automatic allocation. We've currently placed items in the storage bin, arranging them as needed for future periods. An interesting point here relates to the inventory stock list. We can access reports to see the quantities in the storage bin. We have 12 in operating stock, as these are reserved, and 13 in stock, where we define dispatch bin 1 and 2. This creates a comprehensive report for storage bins. Within this framework, we can explore operating stocks further. We'll now observe how they are split, examining dispatch and operating stock for individual items within the storage bin. These reports can be grouped to show the contents of each storage bin, similar to this inventory report. I hope this process is clearer now. Although it's complex, we can manage, control, and manipulate storage effectively. The key focus is on defining the storage location, setting capacities, and determining whether multiple items can be accommodated. That's all.